Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing to take a look at some of these teams across the country that have the best case scenarios in 2023. And we're going down to Penn State and talking about a team that, Dill, you won't find a person in the country higher about this Penn State team heading into 2023 than I am. And this is like peak offseason talk. As a Michigan fan, I spend the 9 months of the offseason just talking about how Michigan's going to win a national title and what needs to happen. And that's right what we were going to do with Penn State. What needs to happen for Penn State to win a national title in 2023? I just answered my own question. That's what I think is the best case scenario for this Penn State team, the ceiling. Now, before we get into that and why this might happen, just want to say thank you to you guys. It's been a blast taking deep dives into all these college football programs. And now a month away from college football, let's have the off-season talk. Let's go a little sicko mode and talk about some of these ceilings. So appreciate you guys tuning into the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, I guess I'll start with this. What's the best case scenario for Penn State in 2023 for you?
This team obviously has a shot to win a national title. And just to get into why, it's like, I don't want to be cliche, but it's Drew Allar. If he plays up to his potential, and Penn State's always been right there, and they never had great play from Sean Clifford. They had solid play for sure, but it never was national championship play. If Drew Allar is as advertised, if you will, and can reach his potential, they'll have national championship.
Yeah, so the reason I'm so high on Penn State is because of this defense. So I legitimately think this defense might be one of the best units in college football, and we'll get into that. But you need to have the offensive side humming too. Like if this team is going to win a national title, that offense needs to be elite. And it does start with the quarterback, Drew Allar, who, Dill, even coming out of high school, y'all know I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to high school recruiting. This dude can absolutely sling it. It was getting the Josh Allen comps at 17 years old. I could watch him throw a football all day long. Absolutely rips it. And you talk about the difference between him and Sean Clifford, and I feel like people think we hate Sean Clifford, though. I think Sean Clifford was a plus Big Ten quarterback. I think he was a solid Big Ten quarterback. Now,
he's like Cade McNamara from Michigan.
He
was solid. He definitely didn't lose some games, but no, he wasn't a quarterback who's going to take you over the edge. That's for sure.
He ain't going to go win you a national title. Now, Drew Allar is a guy that I think can go win a national title. And the reason, there's obviously you have some question marks about a young quarterback stepping up into that role. I have a couple of reasons why I'm so, not only is he's dripping with talent, like massive body, massive arm, extremely accurate, all that, but why I'm so optimistic about him fitting into this offense is because you're legitimately looking at arguably one of the best offensive lines. I don't think there's 5 offensive lines better than Penn State heading into 2020. I don't even know you can name 3. So Penn State is an elite offensive line. You combine that with 2 of the best running backs in the country in Singleton and Katron Allen. That's a quarterback's best friend. This Penn State team is going to be able to run the football, stay on schedule, and not put too much pressure on a guy like Drew Allar to be like a Heisman Trophy winner, even though I think he can do that.
And that's the thing. He's going to have his chance. He's not going to have to do it himself. And at the end of the day, it probably will come down to, can that passing attack work? And there's maybe some questions at that wide receiver spot. Obviously, you lose Parker Washington, who was kind of the guy last year. But, I think they have the talent. And then you look at the tight end room, that's where there's weapons. So
Theo Johnson's a dude. Yeah, Theo Johnson's very, very good. And I guess you're right. You don't have any question marks about this team running the football. Like Big Olu Fashanu, Landon Tango. This is a legit offensive line with 2 really good running backs. The question is, and if Penn State does win a national championship in 2023, it's when you have that running game in sync. Can you push the ball down the field, hit some of those explosive plays? Because that's what's going to get you over the top. And I think Drew can make the throws. I'm kind of with you. I don't know if it's a problem yet, the pass catching group. It's just question marks, right? Parker Washington was that guy last year. He's moving on to the NFL. You go out and I'll start with Dante Cephas coming over from Kent State, one of the more productive quarterbacks or wide receivers, at the FBS level. He's coming in. That's a big jump up from Kent State. That's MAC level football, but he was a dude for the last couple of years. You go out and get Malik McClain from Florida State. Dill, who do you have your eye on in this pass catching room too? Drew Allar's got a big arm. Who's going to be catching the footballs from him?
Well, and that'll be the question. I do think guys like Keandre Lambert-Smith he doesn't get the respect he deserves. I thought he had a really good year last year. he wasn't the main target, so he didn't necessarily put up the stats, but you see that. You see the athleticism's there. I just don't worry about it. And I think James Franklin summed it up the best. He's like, yeah, the wide receiver maybe is a question. I think he did kind of admit that. He's like, who's going to step up? We'll see. But even if that, they got the tight ends. They have the weapons.
Also, you have like 6 answers there. I mean, you have Dante Cephas, who I think could be a massive answer. Malik McCain could be a massive answer. I'll go to Caden Sanders. I mean, one of the top receivers coming out of his high school recruiting class. Just needs to stay healthy, kind of put it together. I think a lot of offseason talk, like you have these question marks. I don't think necessarily question marks are bad things because there could be answers. You look at it and be like, hey, there are question marks and we don't see many answers on this roster either. For Penn State on the offensive side of the ball, like in terms of the pass catchers, there are question marks. Who's going to be that wide receiver one? But I think you got a laundry list of answers that could be those dudes. And you mentioned it best. Like they're going to use their tight ends too, which is going to be a nice safety blanket for Drew Allar to work over the middle of the field. Now, Dill, to pivot here. I mean, we talked about this Penn State offense, but this is not the reason why I think Penn State can win a national title in 2023. The reason I'm so high on this team heading in to 2023 as I get this advertisement out of the way is how good this defense is. And you can say what you want about Manny Diaz as a head coach. Like, it didn't really work out at Miami. This dude is one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, and you pair that up with one of the most talented defenses in the country heading into 2023.
And 100% with you. And you know who I'm honestly looking for, who I think will change this defense and this program and take it up to like that level where they're scary good.
I know where you're going.
Robinson. Can Chop Robinson kind of bloom into that all Big Ten level player? Because I think that was the one thing last year is they didn't necessarily have a defensive lineman or edge rusher who just snap in, snap out was dominating his competition. And it feels like Chop Robinson can be that guy. He did have a very good year last year. It's just, can he take that jump, be that all Big Ten player? I don't see what you do against this team if he does that, because you look at the other spots, the linebackers and secondaries are just, it's nails.
And I think that edge rusher, that premier edge rusher who you can go win is probably the biggest key to a defense, especially at the college football level. You can get a quarterback off the spot, and if you're talking about beating a team like Ohio State, where they might have some question marks at tackles, and you have edge rushers who can really get it done, like that's the key to having a good defense. You don't have to blitz everyone. You can drop back and just get pressure with your front four. You talk about Chop Robinson. I think there's just like the wide receivers. I mean, there's a laundry list of guys that could step up. Adissa Isaac, Danny Dennis Sutton, another former 5-star. It's a loaded group waiting for guys to step up. The guy I'm thinking about in the front 7, I'm going to go to Abdul Carter. I mean, you hear, Dill, so much talk about Harold Perkins being that guy. I mean, and Harold Perkins was awesome as a true freshman. I think he's like one of the best players on the defensive side of the ball in the country. People got to start saying Abdul Carter's name a little bit more, because I think he's one of the premier defenders, not only in the Big Ten, not only on this Penn State team, but in the whole entire country. And you talk about guys who can win off the edge, can win with blitzing. Abdul Carter's that dude.
Yeah, and can they turn him loose more? Again, he wasn't even on the field enough till like the last 5-6 games, it felt like.
Yeah.
He should obviously be playing every snap, and I think you're right. Like, why not use him a little bit to rush the passer and make those high impact plays that win you football games?
And you saw him make those plays. It's just like he's a true freshman getting his feet wet at the Big Ten level. It's really hard to step on a field. Same thing with Harold Perkins. I think there's a reason why Abdul Carter and Harold Perkins both were guys that kind of thrived at the end of the year. Once they got their feet wet, we're starting to see the field. That's when they could go use that elite athleticism and go make those plays. I think Abdul Carter is going to be a household name by the end of the year. And you kind of, I mean, disrespecting a guy like Curtis Jacobs, who's also like an all Big Ten caliber guy. And you take a look at the secondary. I mean, if you have one question mark about this Penn State defense, it's like the big bodies on the interior of that defensive line. But I mean, they were phenomenal against the run all year last year. I'm not too worried about it. When you take a look at the secondary, you lose Joey Porter Jr. I'll raise you Kalen King, who I think might even be a better player than Joey Porter Jr. The secondary is going to be elite again.
You just have no questions about that unit. I mean, they're returning a fair amount of production. They're long, they're athletic. They're pretty much exactly what you want to see in a defense, and I think they're going to take the ball away. So that, combined with Manny Diaz being an aggressive coach and that unit giving him the opportunity to kind of turn it up with his front 7, yeah, that's a good combo.
Completely agree with that. Like Manny Diaz having an elite secondary is so massive for his defense because he wants to send pressure. And I don't even think he needs to send that much pressure. Like I think this front four can get after it. Manny Diaz is going to bring pressure. Having guys like Kalen King, Johnny Dixon, Keaton Ellis, who you can trust in the back end, like I think it's going to be massive. It's going to be unlocking so many doors for Penn State on this defensive side of the ball. I really do think this Penn State team is going to be one of the best teams in the whole entire units, I should say, in the whole entire country in 2023. And the last piece of this puzzle, talking about Penn State winning a national title, you got to get to the Big Ten championship game. You got to get to the college football playoff. And we've talked about it. In the Big Ten, it's Michigan, Ohio State. I feel like people leave Penn State out of it. I think Penn State is right up there.
Right up there.
You saw our Big Ten rankings. We threw Penn State right up there. They're a team that kind of is second fiddle to the Michigan Ohio State conversation. I'm a Michigan fan, and I'm including Penn State because I know how dangerous they are. Dill, looking at this schedule, you got to pick up one win against Ohio State or Michigan. I'm going to ask you, what matchup do you like a little bit more?
I mean, honestly, I
know mine.
I like their shot against Ohio State
100%.
just because if they can turn up the heat on those quarterbacks, I mean, you are essentially getting first-year starters. I think they can run it on them a little bit. I don't know. I think they can take advantage of that offensive line at the end of the day against Ohio State.
100%. I know it's on the road in Columbus, but that's the matchup I like the most for Penn State. And I mean, they're very capable of beating Michigan as well. And this is coming from a Michigan fan. They're capable of beating any team in the country. That's why we're saying the ceiling is to win a national title. Against Ohio State, I love this matchup, though, because I think you're not going to be – I think you just got to accept that Marvin Harrison Jr., Mecca Buka, Julian Flynn, those wide receivers are going to get theirs. Like, it's going to be hard to cover them. Kalen King can do his best. That being said, how do you stop this Ohio State offense? I think in 2023, it's getting after that passer, right? Kyle McCord is a first-year starter, or Devin Brown, whoever starts, you're going to be a first-year starting quarterback. You have an offensive line where I think the interior offensive line is solid. You have a couple draft prospects there. At that tackle spot, I'll tell you there's a reason why they went and got a kid from San Diego State late in the portal, because they were concerned about it. Where is Penn State best at on the defensive side of the ball? It's rushing off the edge. Guys like Chop Robinson, Abdul Carter, Adissa Isaac, Denny Sutton. That's where I think they can get him. You're not going to stop Marvin Harrison Jr. He's going to get it. But can you get some plays, some negative plays against Kyle McCord and an offensive tackle group that has some question marks? I think that Penn State has a very, very good shot at being very competitive with Ohio State, even in Columbus.
And it will be. Can they just hit a couple of those big plays? And frankly, they did it last year, but they also turned the ball over at very inopportune times. So it'll be, I mean, if Allar plays a really solid game and gives them that, again, that like just extra horsepower that they've just been missing for the last 3 years, I don't know. They can beat anyone.
That's the question. I mean, like circling back to why we think this team can be so special is I think you have legitimately a top 5 NFL draft pick in Drew Allar. And I know that sounds crazy because you haven't even seen him play like many significant snaps, but he, I think, offers, and again, I'm not hating on Sean Clifford. He offers just such a bigger ceiling in terms of what he can do with his arm and hitting those explosive plays on the offensive side of the ball that Penn State just sorely missed with Sean Clifford. You need that. Like you need a quarterback, especially if you're Penn State. I mean, outside of Georgia, potentially Alabama, like you need elite quarterbacks to win national titles because you're not going to have the horsepower at every other position like Georgia and Alabama do. Penn State has the team around him. If Drew Allar can be a Heisman Trophy-esque quarterback, can be an NFL draft-esque quarterback, I think this Penn State team can be extremely special in 2023. Now, this is the team I can't wait to watch again. We're on their win total. We're on everything. I picked them in my fantasy pick 'em or my college pick 'em. Like very high on this Penn State team. Excited to watch them in 2023. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys like you do. And if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Though we're putting the flagpole in the. What do you say? We're playing our flag here with Penn State. Like this is a team that's going to be a bona fide top 8 team. Appreciate you guys checking this out, and we'll talk to y'all later.